Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Can we have a roll call, please?
Trustee Marcus? Here. Trustee Weekly?
I'm right here.
Trustee McAvoy? Vice President Wells?
Here.
President Lawson?
Here. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. We have just a small audience tonight, so I'm going to skip all my regular spiel, and we can go right to changes to the agenda. We would like to move 7.2 from action into a discussion item, so we'll put it right after 6.1. Are there any other changes? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We do not have any oral communication, correct? Okay. So that brings us to 6.1. We'll go ahead and open the public hearing regarding the design build agreements for solar photovoltaic systems.
Good evening. This is a public hearing for the solar project that the district is anticipating completion in the next year and a half. We do have a presentation with the next agenda item, so if there's any public comment, we can take that now.
We did not receive any public comments for this.
Okay.
So we'll close the public hearing now. And we're on 7.2, which is just a discussion on resolution number 9, approval of energy services agreement.
Yeah. Thank you. Good evening again. Tonight we've asked 7.2 to be moved to discussion. We had an issue with posting the public hearing notice on the agenda, so we want to make sure that we do it correctly. But we want to take advantage of the team that's here to discuss the project, have the opportunity to ask any questions, and then we'll bring this back after posting the public hearing notice again tonight. We'll bring it back on the 20th for any further discussion as well as approval. With that, I'm going to ask Jen Gibb from Van Pelt Construction Services. She will be presenting the item tonight for discussion.
Thank you so much, Board President, trustees, Dr. Baker, staff and community. I'm Jennifer Gibb. I am your program manager from Van Pelt. Happy to be here this evening to discuss an opportunity of the lighting project that we would like to bring forth at a future board meeting on the 20th for a public hearing and potential action. Some of the items that I also have some of my staff here and are represented from Southland, so I'd like to bring them up as well. Nick Olson is here as a program manager new to your team, and he has many years of experience on the other side of the table, being a district owner, representing the facility side and running multiple bond programs. So he's happy to be here tonight and is up to speed with our project. And then I have Desiree Haas with Southland Industries that is here to answer any questions regarding this project as well. So just some main talking points I want to make sure that you understood as part of a 4217 opportunity under the Energy Code. We're utilizing energy savings. This project will bring forth 52% energy use reduction, as well as $212,000 of annual operating savings. We're upgrading lighting, better environments where they'll be dimmable, they'll be automatic on and off. So that's really great. It's one of your quick start projects along with your HVAC project that we'll be talking about a little bit later under Measure S. It also helps us to stay in compliance with AB 2208, which is regarding LED retrofits and the opportunity that are no longer sold for the fluorescent lights, no longer sold in California. So being compliant with that. We're going to be able to utilize district-wide lighting upgrades to be able to maximize our savings with bulk purchasing with that, and also consistency with warranty and spaces of design throughout the entire district. So that's great. And I think that that's all that I have to a high overview, but if you have any specific questions, the team's here and we can answer those for you.
Any questions on the board?
I had a couple questions. Actually, I had a meta question to step back for a second. This is kind of our first project that we're looking at expending from Measure S. And I was not here when Measure T started, so I don't know how the board established the district established the budgeting process. But I do know that towards the end of it, it sort of had every program and every site had a budget for the project, a contingency. There was a program contingency, a board reserve. When does that get set up, and how are you thinking about doing the budget tracking?
It'll be very similar to what Measure T was, and that will all happen after, excuse me, we have our implementation plan that'll be derived from the facilities master plan. So we'll have real numbers in terms of estimated budget for all of those projects. The implementation plan will be created at that point, and then budgets will be assigned on that. So much like we saw at the end of Measure T when I joined the district, as projects complete and they're under budget, that money comes back into the general pot. In the event that budgets go over, then money's moved into those projects to cover that. And there'll be a very similar tracking system that will be shared with the board routinely to show where costs are incurred based on existing projects that are happening, as well as planned projects. And then we'll also use it as an opportunity. Projects come in much higher than expected, where we'll have to move budgets around from other anticipated projects at the start, just like we would in any program.
And for these quick start ones, I mean, these aren't insignificant spending, right? So like, are we going to wait for the facilities master's plan to do the whole budget? Or, I mean, how are the quick start ones going to be tracked?
So there's a budget that's associated with each of the HVAC sites that's being presented tonight.
Okay.
There's a budget associated with the lighting that will be brought back for consideration in a couple of weeks. So those will be the first two chunks of budget.
Okay.
And then as the implementation is built out after those first two priorities, then you'll see individual budgets for those other projects that will be part of the bigger Measure S program.
Okay, so it's sort of, we'll start following the pattern that we had. Again, I don't know, maybe you remember from when it got started. Yeah,
Yeah, so one thing I just want to say, at the end of the day, it's the board's decision in terms of what gets funded and the priorities and all of that, with, of course, input and recommendations from the superintendent and staff. So first of all, just that's that. So the board can decide, whatever process that we want to go through. What we did before is exactly, I was trying to remember if we had a few, I think, quick start projects, but we also had the facilities master plan already done. And so we kind of knew some of the priorities, but then we recognized, well, we couldn't do everything. So then we did go through a whole prioritization. And what we did the first round is we tried to get those things that met certain things like safety. Anything that was safety, we did. So we did doors, we did fencing. That was the time when we'd had a number of school shootings and not here, but particularly in other states and places, strangers going on campuses. So those kind of rose to the top. Similar to this year, I would say, is HVAC. Like, it was one of those things where we kept hearing from the community kind of leading up to it. So we did safety, anything that was a requirement. So another thing, like when I was reading this, I had a few thoughts, which I can give in a minute, but one of the things I saw, well, it is a legal requirement. So we're going to have to do it at some point. And so this is an opportunity. We're fortunate to actually have passed a bond, so we have the money to do it. Otherwise, other school districts are going to have to find it in general fund and probably do it over time or, however, but we have the opportunity to kind of do it once. So one of the things that, I don't know if we have any other quick start projects, but one thing the board could do in the interim before we kind of see the bigger list and make priorities is, are there any sorts of other quick start projects or things that we've been hearing about from the community that seem to be kind of top of mind, burning, that feel like, okay, you don't really want to wait that, but I think we're gonna, can you remind us the timeline on that in terms of prioritization and coming up with that? Is that in the next 6 months or is it longer, a year?
No, it'll be within the next 6 months.
Within the next 6
Yeah.
months, so we'll know that. So really, it's probably approving, the solar and this. And then I don't know if we have other things, but I mean, the HVAC is what I meant,
That's
yeah.
one of the biggest things at this
Right,
point in
right.
time. And if you recall, when we started with Measure T, we also did a lot of the infrastructure when it had to do with the wiring,
Yeah.
because we were updating all our wiring for the internet and so forth. So we did a lot of that first. And then to give everyone something, we did a lunch shelter,
That's what I was
or
thinking,
we
yeah,
did
exactly.
those outside
umbrella,
tables
yeah.
with the umbrellas.
Yeah, because we had been hearing a lot about, the need for additional shade and things like that. So things that kind of have bubbled up. The good news is we dealt with a lot of those things under Measure T. So we've heard of HVAC, solar. This is kind of something we didn't necessarily hear about, but it works.
Is on the list.
Right,
Yes.
right. It works nicely with, we had talked about wanting to do more energy efficiency, and then this is a requirement by the state, so we're gonna have to do it at some point, right? So is there anything else? I guess that's the question. Or other kind of quick start things that we need to be thinking about before the next 6 months, right? I don't know if that was your or it was sort of
Mine
part
were
of-
more technical
Right.
around like the actual mechanics of tracking the budget, but it's a very good point that you raised.
Right.
And I can touch on that a bit. I don't have a list of quick start projects tonight to share, right? But I can say that through the facility master plan, and I anticipated a question will come up about this at some point, maybe with the HVAC. The work that QKA and VPCS is doing along with Martin, myself, with all of the school sites, right? We've finished our initial first meetings with all the school sites. We have our second meetings starting to be scheduled right now. We have a couple on the books already. And we're seeing themes come from that, right? That QKA and the team are compiling, and that'll be part of the discussion coming forward too. We're planning on coming back at the December meeting with a facilities master plan update with where we're at that point specifically with what we're hearing, right? Which, and I can't think of a good one off the top of my head, but there are common themes, right? Restrooms and meeting spaces and that type of thing, and not necessarily all quick start projects. But a common theme amongst many sites, right? And so that will be coming back. And once we get through all these meetings, the team from QKA does their work of compiling all the data, if you will, all the input, and looking at what can be done at some of these sites and what needs to be done from a code perspective or from a requirement perspective, along with just general site needs that make that site more efficient or more desirable for a learning environment. Some of those may come forward that we'll discuss at that meeting on the 9th to say, hey, here are, quick start projects that affect, 10 sites, right? Maybe it doesn't affect our traditional middle schools right now, but maybe our elementary schools. And we can look at that as part of initial budgeting as well.
Right.
I was just saying TK, I'm sure is
And
coming up, but
TK.
yeah.
Yeah, so were you Jen or no?
I mean, I only had one other question, but if
Yeah.
you're on topic, you can by all means jump in. If it's like related to the kind of projects, because my next one was going to be around like the vendors, just talk through like the vendor selection and.
Yeah, go ahead and then I'll.
Okay, yeah. So then just curious, like if you could just talk through the process of selecting the vendor, like how many proposals were in there, what were the criteria, the resolution that we're not approving tonight that we'll do at the next one talked about like a couple of the factors, but then said additional factors. So I was just curious what went into the selection process.
Correct. Southland Industries was they did all of our assessments for lighting throughout the district. So they're familiar with that, and there was an opportunity to utilize them and get pricing from them. They had familiarity, they reviewed all of our sites, did the assessment, and we were able to they were able to understand our district, and we went with them as the one price that we're bringing to you tonight under 4217.
And are they ones that you worked with before?
Correct. Our team has worked with them. in other districts through competitive selection processes and through direct hire through a 4217. They're a national company. They do this all over the nation, working specifically in California, a very reputable firm. And so we have had a very successful process in the review of our sites and assessment data, and decided to continue forward if the board so chooses.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I don't have any, unless you were gonna add something. Okay, yeah, I don't have any other questions. I will say that I think that, modernizing our facilities, making them, paying attention to climate resilience, making them more efficient, greening the facilities, I think is an important thing to be using the Measure S funds for. This kind of fits right into that. All the projects tonight they're not all from Measure S, but they all kind of fit into that, that theme. So, looking at the potential savings, it's not a cheap project to be able to do this upgrade, but it does sound like something that needs to be done. It does feel like a good direction to head in. So thanks for the information.
Yeah, solar feels like it's a little bit more of a slam dunk from just the economics. This one was like, it's going to pay for itself in like 100 years approximately. So it was a little bit less of a financial, oh my God, we got to do it. So I had some questions that I had written in about just timing. Do we really need to do this whole thing right now? And it does seem like pretty quickly, we're going to be in an era where we're not going to be able to replace the fluorescents when they go out. And so point wise, having to do a little bit by little bit by little bit would actually probably end up much more expensive was the argument. So I thought that was interesting. I'm not going to say I fully understand why we don't bid this out more broadly, even if this is a reputable vendor, it's someone we've worked with, that all sounds good, but just, yeah, it's a $17 million contract. So I'm just, I'm wondering, like, what, yeah.
One of the requests by was to be able to meet our January 2025 opportunity, as well as do a quick start. So being able to get into our sites, procuring does take some time. Taking that to multiple vendors under 4217, we're able to contract with reputable vendors that do these types of projects and utilizing energy savings. So that was the recommendation that we were made to staff.
Is there, just to help us out, is there like a like to like where, I don't know, the square footage for which lighting is being supplied, there's some dollar per square foot, and we could look at similar contracts that had been done just to get a sense of, is this a fair price? I'm not expert enough in school lighting systems to say, to assess our properties and say, yeah, $17 million is a good price for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Our team did look at the costs in regards to what the estimate that came in from Southland comparative to other districts that we're working in, and it is comparable. We're happy to bring that to staff, that analysis, and share it with the board.
I think that would help give comfort, especially in an area where we don't have multiple vendors bidding, that we want to make sure we're using taxpayer dollars in the most effective way possible. So just be good to have that comfort.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, one more comment, sorry.
Hello, board, superintendent, staff, and community. My name's Des House. I'm with Southland. I just wanted to touch base on a couple of the questions that you had, which are phenomenal. So you're doing your due diligence, and I appreciate that. So every school is unique also when it comes to the wiring, the ballasts that are in, when the retrofits happen. Has it been, piecemealed project, a complete district-wide retrofit? So that all factors into some of the pricing. The savings that we are recommending, and I know you said it, yes, it has a long-term payback, but if you notice, it's a 52% reduction in what you're currently utilizing. So with the pricing increases coming from the utility, that reduction in utilization is going to influx with the dollar rates as they kind of progress over time, because we all know that utilities like to increase their rates and get some money out of the deal. So that is one method that we like streamlining with the 4217 process, because it does give us a quicker process to be able to get in, procure, and then you'll have kind of one direct point of contact within our company that we can make sure that everything's done. We do it all in-house. So it's all a turnkey method. And that is just something that works well with these quick start projects, especially with it being lighting and increasing safety with the accessibility and visibility of your sites. It is.
So the one of the questions that I had was, or it was more of a comment, I guess, but kind of a question. We went back and forth in email, is just to ensure that as we're staging these and moving forward, that we try to anticipate the best we can which classrooms will be torn down. So we don't retrofit them and then, like the following year or two, we tear all those things down because that would be a waste. So anyway, hopefully the timing is such you're procuring things, you're doing additional analysis, kind of getting ready to stage the project. We should know that the board should have made that decision within the next 6 months, it sounds like, because that will be important because we won't be we won't have enough money to tear down everything and build new, but we do know there's some really old classrooms that would be the most efficient and effective way to do it, right? So anyway, so yeah, if you could just speak to that. And I know you guys are thinking about it, but I think that's important for us to all recognize.
So yeah, another great question on this process with this project or any of the projects that we're talking about right now, because as you mentioned, we don't know what buildings may be replaced. And as I explained in the email earlier today, this is merely the start of these projects, right? This is the kickoff. There's still some additional design work to happen. There's still procurement to happen. And we'll be able to adjust on the fly. So if, let's say, and totally random date, but let's say by March, we know that we're tearing down a building at school X. I'm not going to name a school. I don't want to give false hope. But at school X, then we're going to adjust the plans for lighting. We're going to adjust the plans for solar won't be an issue, but HVAC. We'll adjust that, right? Where, well, we were going to do this site, but now we're going to put temporary measures to mitigate heat rather than permanent ones in those classrooms that we know will be leaving. So, yeah, this just really gets everything moving. It doesn't say that as of tonight or next time when we approve this, that every classroom the next day is going to have new lighting fixtures and new lighting, and we'll worry about future projects down the road. It'll all be taken into account with the work that VPCS is doing along with QKA in terms of the whole master planning process.
Yeah, sorry. And in our additional audit of the site, we audited the district this summer. We went through every single classroom. So we have kind of a package line by line. I think there's about a little less than 15,000 fixtures actually throughout the district. So we'll know if school X is being there, we can kind of carve it out and then modify it based on that. And that is another benefit of the 4217 method with you're not taking somebody else's plans and moving it forward to kind of go through that way. It's just, we know what to do and we can kind of piece that out together.
So I was also just thinking a little bit because I had the same reaction, I always do like, well, what's the payback of that? I think this is just another one where the state of California is requiring school districts, businesses, everybody to be more mindful of climate change, and we've all got to do it. And they've got goals, and the feds have, everybody has goals. And so this is just a requirement. It's not necessarily a payback, but it's, the right thing to do by the environment. And then the other thing I did want to mention is the 212,000 or whatever it was, and that could grow. I mean, it may change if we add solar, then we may not actually, that could change. But any of those savings will be general fund savings, right? So again, that's the operational, that's for teachers, that's for programs, which is really, that money in some ways is much more valuable to us because operational has just been harder for us to get. So anyway, that also just, I think is a great thing because that's like 2 teacher salaries every year, right? As an example. So anyway, yeah.
Anything else? Cecilia, did you have anything?
I didn't have any questions because I actually spoke to Dr. Baker. But since we are on this topic and just for clarity, since, we want to talk about transparency, and when we talk about this government code 4217, I'm just wondering when we talk about the vendor selection is based on their qualifications rather than the cost, is that because you figure the cost is gonna be a lot greater than, I don't even know how to pose my question. We're gonna save money by utilizing this vendor, but had we gone to do the RFPs for other vendors, it would have taken longer, but do we know if there's other vendors out there that would have been, let's say, less expensive and will still be saving? So I don't know if it makes sense.
Yes, that's a great question. I think one of the opportunities you have with Measure S and you utilize with Measure T as well is all the different delivery methods that are available to you. So you have your traditional low bid, which is design bid build. That's where you just take the lowest price, right? You have lease back, you have design build, you have 4217 or mass purchasing opportunities. And those 4217 or a mass purchasing agreement allow you to pick what you'd like and move forward with it. It's through that qualification process. They're the right person for you, your right vendor for you for this project specifically, or the right product for you. And through utilizing all those. So yes, you could have gone either way. This is one of the opportunities that you have as a public agency to utilize through procurement. So the answer is yes, you absolutely can do those other ways. This was the opportunity brought for you tonight.
And I think to further expand on that, it wasn't just that a company was just picked randomly, right? It was a company picked. One, they were brought in because of known work to some of us in the district as well as to VPCS. VPCS also did the due diligence to make sure that, they weren't charging us $30 for a light fixture when everyone else was charging us 10, right? So they did comparative analysis against other projects that they're involved in or are aware of as well, right? To make sure that the pricing was very similar to those that may have been competitively bid or went through a 4217 process in another district, right? So, and I had conversations with Eric, seemingly months ago, Eric Van Pelt from Van Pelt Construction Services, who's presented a couple times here. And it was talking about the due diligence and where he was going to look for those other figures. And he was even looking at projects that weren't under the VPCS umbrella, right? To make sure that when we went through this process, the pricing was fair.
So some homework was done.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Can you remind me, I feel like in all of the budget discussions this fall, I've kind of lost track of the facilities master plan process. So you met with all the school sites and you said you're going back to them. Can you just catch us up to?
Yeah, so through the facility master planning process, we scheduled site committee meetings. We've gone through the first round with all of our sites. It took us a little bit longer. We had some participation issues with some of the committees at some of the sites, so it took a little bit longer to get some of those scheduled, but we were successful going through all of those. QKA, which is sitting back here, has been crunching all the input, if you will, right, and preparing maps of what the site could look like with needs that were identified through that process, where we'll go back to the sites on their second meeting, right, and talk to them about what they determined. This also, we talked about solar with the school sites through this and the potential placement of that, which we'll get into in a next agenda item. Along with other needs, right? We talked about needs and wants at the school site. A lot of needs around TK came up that, our schools, shared or multi-room offices, right? So there could be small group meetings. That was a big one that came up. So QK is going and looking, what can we do with the land that we have there, with the site that's there, taking into account current building conditions, how old the buildings are, how new the buildings are, what we need to do to either modernize or upgrade the buildings that we have, or if it's going to be recommended through this process that, building X gets eliminated and a new building gets put there because of age or condition, right? Or just space, right? We know we have several school sites that are very landlocked in terms of there's not a lot of space to build unless you take away playgrounds or fields or something like that. So They'll make recommendations that it would be the best to put a two-story building here or reconfiguration of something else, right, in order to meet the needs of that school site. We've also had the opportunity to talk about the wants, right? Well, we really want this. We don't necessarily need it. That'll come through with the facilities master planning process as well. And it will be talked about at the site level again in their second meeting. That'll call all of that information along with the meetings that have happened with CNS, right, for the kitchen facilities. It's happened with, even though Martin's in almost every meeting, we're having meetings with even M&O and facilities about what they need, not only just for their area, but throughout the district. Where our meeting with our technology department is scheduled for Friday, right? Dr. Baker mentioned with Measure T, the first thing was a lot of low voltage wiring and connectivity. Well, there's still some stuff that needs to be done to potentially make that even better now and clean up some of the work that was done with Measure T. And, now we're looking at a lot of input. I'll say a lot. It seemingly from about half the sites about technology needs, right? And how they've either evolved or changed at the school site. So we'll have to look at how we accommodate that. All that will be compiled and then brought back to the board for discussion. Like I mentioned, the next one that we're planning on coming back to is December, I think it's 8th or 9th, whatever the date is, 8th. To have a discussion again, specifically about the facilities master plan and what's happening there. We've also met with the ed spec team, looking at, just educational specifications at school sites. That'll be incorporated into the plan as well. And that all takes into account all the other input that we've heard through the process, right? And that'll be presented.
Thank you. In your initial meetings with the schools, did you bring them the phase 2 that was done, I think 10 years ago, or are you starting from scratch?
Some of them had knowledge of that, but we really wanted to hear their input of where we're at now, right? What's changed.
Yeah.
How do you view the needs, not 10 years ago, right? But how do you view the needs as of today?
Yeah.
And so that was really what the discussion was about. And, some of the discussions were very lively, a lot of participation. Oh, we need this and we need this, and we need shade over here, and we need new rooms here. All the elements, we need bathrooms, right? For TK and K. So that was all taken into account too. And then the work that Hector and the QKA team are doing, they're looking at the needs assessment from 2015, determining what was done, what was partially done, what wasn't touched during that time period, and seeing if that's still relevant for the facility plan going forward. And that information will also be incorporated in the second meeting when we're talking to them. You guys did not mention that you needed a hot air balloon station, right? But in 2015, it was there, and there still could be a need for that. So we're going to carry that forward, right?
Okay, good. Because I know,
example should make sure that
Right.
Yeah. 10 years ago, everything has changed. There's new staff, new principals, new teachers, new families. I think the priorities might be different too. So.
Can you just mention who's on these site committees? Like what types of people?
The best people in the district.
What mix,
And I mean that they've for the most part, we've had between 6 and 12 members. The school principal is always there. Most of the time there's a teacher or two, maybe 3 depending on the site. Classified staff have been at many of the meetings, 1 or 2, 3 depending. And then it ranges from 1 or 2 parents to 5 or 6 parents to 7 or 8 parents. And it's different at every site. The makeup, unfortunately was it 2 sites, Hector? It was really hard to get a site committee, so we chose just to meet with the school principal initially, and they're working on bringing people back to the second meeting so they can hear what was derived from that. But generally, I would say we're on average 8 or 9 people in these meetings, giving various input, giving various, their perception of needs versus wants and wants versus needs, and really advocating for their school sites, which was the intent of this. I told all the principals at the start of the meeting or before the meeting, this is your chance to say whatever you want, basically, right? To tell us your needs, but also tell us your wants. what would make the school site better, and it wasn't a guarantee that any of it would happen. But if we don't know about it, it can't be
Mhm.
incorporated into a plan that's going to exceed the amount of funding we have through Measure S, right? There'll be other funding opportunities that come in during the time period of this facilities master plan, where some of those projects that won't be originally scheduled for implementation do become scheduled for implementation. You know, at the end of Measure T, there's a lot of those projects that came in. Oh, now we have money for this from the board reserve that you talked about, Mike, saying, oh yeah, now we can go and spend this $300,000 here, or we can put an outdoor learning environment here. The same type of thing will happen with this. So it was really important to get the perspectives of everything, not just TK bathrooms or TK classrooms.
And then I'm assuming in the timeline, whatever plan comes out of the different schools, I mean, the whole school site will get a chance to reflect upon it, right? Okay. We did that last time as well, and that was helpful. Okay.
No, it's okay. No, that's fine. I was just wondering, I was gonna ask if there's anything else on the board.
Is there anything cool that we get out of this? Like, other than, okay, the lights, they were fluorescent, now they are LED. Like, do we get lighting in more places? Do we get tunable lighting?
Let me have Des talk about all the
Disco
cool
dance
things you're
parties.
getting.
Yeah.
There will be a
I
disco
was gonna
ball
say,
that
David's
comes
wanting a light source
down.
thing.
Whenever you guys approve something, it'll start going off. So something really awesome about it, if you look at your light switch here, you have these, we must conserve, don't waste. It'll be kind of like an out of sight, out of mind with the occupancy sensors. You have dimmable lighting. It'll be uniform throughout the entire district. So your facilities will really just be a shining beacon in the community, so to speak. And you can program them the way that you want them done. On top of that, something that our company likes to personally do is give back. So we like to do a lot of energy conservation chats with community, students, staff, teachers. We like to do what we call an energy savers program, where we put together little teams and have a competition between the district on who can save the most energy. And then we, at the end, they get bragging rights and something fun from our company towards the end. So it's really about teaching kids about what's being done in their districts and adding that sense of ownership and accountability. They see changes, new desks, new paint, new carpet, solar, paint, buildings torn down, buildings put up all the time, but they never hear the why behind it. So what we like to do is give a little spiel on what energy actually is, how lighting is actually going to help. You made a phenomenal reference to that's 2 teacher salaries, right? So what I used to like to do is tell kids, is there a class that one of your friends has at a different district that you don't actually have here? They're like, yeah, well, curriculum costs money. And when we save money, there's things like lighting or energy conservation measures, all that goes back into the district. And so it gives them, then they love to rat on the other teachers. Well, Mr. Velasquez always leaves his door open with the HVAC, and it just becomes like a fun thing. So I think the really cool thing is you are, building your general fund by implementing measures that are mandated, but also necessary and good for the environment. But you also are kind of building the ideas that you're standing behind on your district with your kids. And we stand fully behind that as a company. We love the next generation of leaders, the next generation of workers. So we even have done, especially in the high school ages, where we bring in tradesmen, foremen from the different unions to chat with the juniors and seniors about what a career in a union job looks like. And we can make a field trip up to one of our fabrication shops so that they could see, pipe fitting, sheet metal, plumbing, all of that fun stuff. I'm an engineer by trade, so it's just fun to talk about the different opportunities that there actually are in energy. It's not just engineers. There's, workers on the ground, there's auditors, there's proposal writers, all of that fun stuff. So that's just another added thing that Southland loves to do. So
That sounds really neat. I'm curious with the lights themselves though. If it's going to be LED lighting, then in theory, you could play with the colors, right? You could tune them. You could.
So the LED lighting that we put in isn't kind of like what you go buy in Home Depot that has like the remote control and you can kind of change it, but we can make them dimmable within standards that are put throughout the state of California.
And in terms of the color temperature?
Yes, and the color temperature and all of that fun stuff.
I actually think the dimmable is really important, especially in the classroom, to create the environment that the teacher needs for the best learning environment for the
Yes,
student.
and it
So,
gives the opportunity if there's some really awesome daylight in there that they can utilize that, or they can put it up or down. It just really depends. So it gives a customizable experience. There's studies done by different entities throughout the world really on school facilities and the impact that lighting actually has on retention from and student achievement from, they might have a visibility problem or whatever it may be. And when there's better lighting in the schools, it's actually noticed either more, you can catch on to a problem a little bit more quickly.
At full brightness, will there be a difference in total illumination?
It'll be to the standard of whatever fixture it is that ends up being selected on. So it will be better. It won't be worse. So there is older equipment with the T8s that have been put in throughout the district. The newer ones, you'll notice that it just looks brighter. The output or the reach of the lighting. So as you can kind of see in the wall behind you where there's kind of the shadowed areas, that typically goes away with the brighter and the LED lumens.
Okay, but are there more lumens actually being emitted? You said it looks brighter, but is it brighter?
Yes, with
Yes,
the new,
okay.
with the, yes, with the newer LED and the newer technology, you get more lumens with a different model that doesn't utilize as much energy. Yeah.
thank you. This is discussion item, no action being taken
A
tonight
brighter future for our district, right there.
for that. Okay, so that's moving to bond action item 7.1, adoption of resolution number 8, approval of the design build agreements.
And so I would like to welcome Will Robertson to discuss 7.1 for us.
Dr. Baker, Board of Trustees, staff community. I know this is an exciting project for you guys. It's been on the Measure T prioritized list for years and was actually the last project left on the Measure T prioritized list. So we're excited that you guys are able to execute it now using the state funding reimbursements. First wanted to answer Trustee Wells' questions. So first one, we are down to less than $500,000 left in the board reserve. And so this project will be funded, supplemented with the state funding reimbursement to the Measure T program. So that's
And
Fund
just to
35.
clarify, I had asked like, how is this getting funded when there's almost no money left in
Right,
Measure
it's
T?
state
It's the
funding.
Fund 35 and I couldn't remember. I think that's where the reimbursements went and Will saying, yeah, that's the state reimbursement. So
And then your second question about the selection process, we also utilized the 4217 Energy Code, released a competitive RFP, received 7 proposals, and selected on a best value basis using the criteria, obviously the price, the dollar per kilowatt. Then the K-12 and DSA project experience was big. And then the project schedule was also very important. Confidence in them meeting the PG&E net energy metering 2.0 grandfathering deadline of April 2026. So we did initially engage with the lowest cost vendor, later to uncover that they didn't have the DSA experience we were looking for. They were utilizing one of their subs for their DSA experience requirement. So we went with the next most qualified proposal, Holt Renewables, who had significant DSA experience and great confidence in meeting the NEM 2 deadline. It's also a really exciting project because it will be offsetting $21 million to the general fund over the 25-year life of the project. So life of the solar system. Any other questions?
I mean, I had pinged in quite a few questions to Rick that he dutifully answered. I think my communications with Rick should be published on the website just because Rick does such a great job answering them in tremendous detail. But just in case others in the public were interested, folks know that I'm really passionate about battery storage and that's not something that's being done as part of this overall proposal. But there was apparently some calculations that were done that showed that it was not going to be as ROI positive as I had hoped. I'm still awaiting seeing some of those calculations. But we should ideally build this in a way that anticipates the possibility of battery coming in. So we're, oh, what a surprise. We need to install batteries. And just so people are aware, solar without battery means that if grid power is lost, the school sites will lose power, even though solar is being provided because of anti-islanding. That's correct, yes?
I believe so. I don't want to speak inaccurately.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's some kind of controller that would allow that, but it does sound accurate.
Yeah. So we would need batteries in order to have the school site continue to operate in the face of a grid outage. And that is something that I continue to be interested in that's not being encompassed here. So I had originally thought before I had gone and looked at the site plans that we'd be putting a bunch of these things on roofs. And now I see, I sit corrected that these are going to be more shade structures and the like. When reviewing the site plans, I noticed at MIT, the modules seem to be in a baseball field. And I would just worry that like baseballs are going to go and hit some of those. That's our biggest installation at 408 kilowatts, right?
Again, I don't want to speak inaccurately. I think McKinley North Star combo with the MOT yard canopy structure over the EV buses, I think that's the biggest single site contract. So when we submitted the PG&E interconnection applications to ensure that you guys were grandfathered in a few years ago, those interconnection applications come along with certain, low and high kilowatt production that you have to meet.
Yeah.
So we have to meet that production, and we were really struggling at MIT North Star to fit them.
Yeah.
They didn't want to lose any of their basketball courts, so we were able to squeeze one big canopy in kind of between the basketball courts and the admin. We utilized the MOT yard, a big one over the EV buses, and then are trying to squeeze one into the field so as not to kind of, impact the baseball play. And I understand Martin's coordinated with the city and parks team, let them know, and tried to get their buy-in on that as well. So
my concern is mechanical in nature, right? You've got these shatterable glass panels, and you've got baseballs getting hit potentially onto them.
The panels now are actually really strong. They actually have video displays of trucks, driving over them and flexing. So there is a possibility that, a baseball could hit it perfectly and crack a single panel, but they actually have demos that show, baseballs and other things hitting them and not creating damage. Yeah.
All right, I just want to make sure that when we build out and put a bunch of solar panels in a baseball field, that we don't find ourselves surprised that baseballs are hitting the solar panel and like having to regularly replace them, because that would feel a little embarrassing.
Understood.
Yeah.
I'd like to add to this. Yeah. So hear you loud and clear, right?
Yeah.
And so we've had several discussions, and I just pulled up the McKinley map, and this is one of the ones where we've made many modifications to this site, and we've even talked about moving the panel that you're referring to on the other side of the field, right? Or putting it in another shade structure.
Yeah.
So once again, as I was explaining with the lighting, this is the start of the project, and we'll still be working with our contractors on final placement. We got a lot of feedback. I think the first map for McKinley, the panels that are closest to the building were actually out over the basketball courts, and we moved those back closer to the building to create shade.
Yeah.
The shade structure.
The shade structure right next to the building.
For sure.
And then we also talked about looking at the tree line on the opposite side of where it is now, creating another potential lunch area, shade structure, sitting area. So some of these may not be the final, but we are taking into account that. I can share, I'm not going to pull it up, but I believe it was Henry Ford, where we had panels going right through the foul line on the baseball field, and we actually determined to move those panels back and create shade on the edge of the blacktop, not to interfere with the baseball field. So that is taken into account, and once the projects are finalized, the final maps will be shared as well.
Yeah. So I love that we're charging forward with this. We also have heard loud and clear from the community to get HVAC installed. And I'm wondering the degree to which we have to anticipate a parallel effort, that this work might be happening at the same time as our HVAC installation work, and like how that's going to get coordinated. Because I've heard a lot of enthusiasm for solar. I've heard a lot of enthusiasm for air conditioning. Both involve doing a lot of funky things with the electrical system at each of these sites. So just what's our plan for coordinating the work between those two projects?
So we are not good managing the HVAC installation, but
Yes.
we are going to coordinate it. So, I mean, there's going to be two completely separate systems.
Yeah.
But it's going to be great that you guys are installing solar at the same time as the electric HVAC. Electric HVAC is going to increase your electrical usage.
Yeah.
These will help offset it, and we are absolutely trying to maximize the solar production to help offset HVAC as the HVAC increased electrical load as much as possible. The LED project that they just mentioned is also going to help, take the energy usage in the opposite direction. So try to drive up production, do as many energy efficiency measures to take you in the opposite direction to get you guys as close to, a zero net energy as possible.
It's fantastic. It's mainly just like wanting to avoid rework.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's stepping on each other's toes. So like, we're going to need to keep that tightly coordinated.
Yep.
I added up the kilowatt of production at each of the sites. And I don't know if my math is correct here, but it's about 1,832 kilowatts altogether across those sites.
Oh, man. I don't have that metric on me.
Okay. Yeah, and the total install cost was a 14.692 million.
Are you
Looks like it's money.
towards the dollar per kilowatt? No.
Yeah, you
It
anticipated.
was just a
the
little
prediction I was
higher
gonna do, which
than
was about
$5. $5, yeah.
$5. Okay.
was a little
When I
upside,
divided
closer to
those numbers,
$6.
it was $8.02 per watt installed.
Okay. Yeah, I believe Holt Renewables was like just under $6 with all inclusive. So
Okay, got it. So I'm just trying to, again, use a yardstick of like, how does this measure up against other large scale solar installs? My read of the literature was like in California, they expect like about $2 to $3 installed per watt. And so this is just a little bit on the high end for that. If it does end up being 6, because like I screwed up my math, I missed some sites, that feels a lot closer to.
there might, I think there are other things that were taken into account as part of the project, like the EV chargers, everything else. So, yeah, I mean, we're happy to share that, but we also, got 7 competitive proposals, and the next lowest, the vendor that I mentioned, we engaged with and, learned they didn't have any DSA experience, the actual design build prime contractor that was trying to win the bid. They were trying to break into the K-12 market, and we didn't want to be a test project for them, but they were just under at around $5.50 if I remember correctly. And then Holt was just, barely above them in terms of dollar per kilowatt, but had a much stronger DSA experience, DSA and K-12, project experience, backlog. And then they were much more confident in meeting the NEM 2 deadline. So
I'm excited.
And that's the absolute most important
Can I ask,
thing.
was your research with school districts or just with any business?
Generically.
Yeah, so that's what we have to be careful about, because the DSA and all other requirements that school districts have just add to the project. So it'd be
Prevailing wage.
And I remember I was shocked project after project, and then I'd have to be reminded, well, it's all the DSA approvals. And so anyway, just get used to it.
That's like the question on,
But,
The taxpayer in me is a little
Right,
coffee, but I
right.
want to make sure.
Well,
that-
it's one of those things where, yeah, I mean, it is what it is, but there's safety reasons around it.
it's like the conversation about a lunch shelter. You could buy a lunch shelter for $10,000 and install it at a house. To get one through DSA and, get one installed at a school district, $150,000. So,
Yeah, what about
It's the same as the backpack hooks, right?
oh, yep.
Oh my
Remember
God.
that?
Just,
And I will
Yeah.
say, one of the things I've done with CSBA, I mean, CSBA has tried to advocate around all of this stuff, but
yeah.
and some of it really is safety, and there's good reasons for it, but it does seem like some of it has gone sort of beyond. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
an opportunity for advocacy, Dave.
Yeah, we
At the
definitely
state
need
level.
some advocacy at the state level there. Some of the sites have a lot more panels than others, right? So the MIT North Star site's got like 408 kilowatts. The 3150 Granger's got 62. Did the scale out in terms of panel size at that site match the amount of electricity we're consuming at these sites?
That is correct. Yeah, we were going for as close to a full offset at each side as possible.
Beautiful.
yeah.
Those are the words I was looking for. Thank you.
There you go.
Anybody else?
Actually, I will say that because time is so critical for this one to be able to keep
Yes.
that grandfathering, it was good to see the that baked right into the contract with. There's not a penalty. I know that from looking at it. It's look some damages, right?
Yeah, there is a penalty, liquidated
No, no, I'm
damages.
pretty
Yeah.
sure the contract said it's not a penalty, but it is. Yeah, I understand what you're
Well,
saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
they, if they do not meet the NEM2 deadline, there is a cost
Yeah.
incurred to the contractor.
Yeah. So that was good to see. Yeah, I mean that's
Light a fire under their butts.
Oh,
But
it's
that's-
it's already happened. I mean, that's why we're going with this vendor, was because of their firm confidence
Yeah.
in being able to meet the schedule. We've been jumping through hoops to provide them with anything and everything that we can in advance so that they can, have everything teed up and start their due diligence.
Yeah, and this would have probably been one of the quick start projects or, something that we would want to do now with the rest of the Measure T money and the state funding that came back anyway. But that expiration, that opportunity for even additional savings really does make it even more obvious that this is a good choice to do now.
Can I just say that I was talking to somebody yesterday, and there's a lot of school districts that do not have what we have, and so thank goodness for you, Will, and the team, the bond team, in our school district, and then having Measure S, Measure T, we got in the pipeline because there's a lot of school districts. And actually, that's one of the things that I think the state legislature passed something, but then Gavin Newsom vetoed it. So it'll be coming back, but there's a lot of school districts who want what we're getting and they're not going to get it. So at least not now. So anyway, I just want to say thank you. And that was good foresight from the bond team and from our school district.
Yeah, I mean, we engaged early on, so we submitted to CDE and OPSC to keep all modernization and new construction projects eligible for state funding early on, right when we got DSA approval, got the projects into the the hopper, and sure enough, years later the money is actually available even before the Prop 2 $10 billion bond passed and has been flowing back into Fund 35. So very excited for you guys.
Thanks, Will. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution?
May I make a motion to approve this?
I'd like to second our sunny days ahead.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you guys.
All right, good
Well,
job. Thanks.
later.
Nice to see you, Will.
That brings us to 7.3, approval of contracts with QKA Architects.
Tonight, Jen Gibb again from BPCS will be leading the discussion to approve the contracts with QKA Architects for the design of HVAC upgrades to start immediately on the design for 4 school sites for construction in the summer of 2025. Jen?
I'm back. Thank you so much. Woo! Thank you so much for having me. Tonight we'd like to bring forth a contract for QKA to start the design services for the 4 schools that we have here. Our total project budget that we're estimating for the construction and the design with contingencies is around 25 million. The contract tonight for QKA is 10% of the construction costs for each of those. So each site is around the 400,000 and we have one that's around 500,000 because there's a little bit more work that will need to be done. And it's accounted for in the design for the structural and seismic safety of those units. We would like to start our schedule immediately on the design. That's why it's quick start project, so that we could get these projects up and going this summer, completed in summer of 2025. As part of the procurement process for this project, we will be coming back, if the board so chooses to approve this project tonight. We'll be coming back in the future with the owner furnished contractor installed opportunity to purchase our HVAC units. So we'd like the district to purchase those directly so that we can get those coming and be procured, ready to go this summer. It allows us to do that with doing owner furnished contractor installed. And then we'll continue with our temporary measures, which are the blinds, window tinting, and then the mobile AC units, bringing those forth as opportunities for you to approve as we move forward on mitigating district-wide reduction in temperatures in our classrooms. So with that, I also have QK here if we have any questions you have.
For the community, can you explain how these 4 schools were chosen?
Absolutely. These 4, Hector, do you want to come up? As part of our analysis, I'm going to hand it over to Hector and with QK to talk about a little bit of the assessment that's were done already. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. Great question. So essentially what we did is we surveyed all the sites throughout your district, and through a process of accumulating the information and documenting it, it became obvious that certain sites needed less electrical and structural and other infrastructure upgrades to allow the HVAC to happen. So knowing that these projects, we wanted to have a quick start timeline and allow them, provide the facility of actually having them happen quickly. That was the standard that we used. So these 4 sites came to the top.
And is there an additional impact on the grid of the neighboring like homes and stuff when we upgrade these?
Great question. So luckily, the impact to the electrification or the HVAC would be site-based, and all be dependent upon the bandwidth or the amperage that's per site.
Yeah, so I think this was touched on in the last one, but so with the increased electricity costs for the HVAC, and then we'll have a decrease, which will be less, I would think, in the lighting, that's being accounted for with our solar. Okay, I think that's what we heard.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Correct. We're
Okay.
going to be working in coordination with every project that you're doing. We're not working in
Yeah,
silos. We're
right.
communicating.
Sorry, we just have to ask the question, even if,
Absolutely. We're
you
communicating.
know, like that's obvious.
And so we're taking into consideration, and that work has already started with actually even the placement of the solar. There was cross coordination with that through Measure T and Measure S and the master planning process. So we're taking into all consideration of the quick start projects and your existing projects or now approved projects with Measure T with your solar.
And I guess I think it's just important then for the community. I think this is what you were getting at, Janet, because one of, all the school sites, of course, want full on HVAC right away.
Yeah.
And the issues that we've talked about at other meetings, and what you're saying is that these are the 4 sites that we could move quickly on for this summer. The other ones require additional electrical upgrades or other sorts of things with the classroom that are just not possible to do, or not possible to do in an economical way, maybe both, but I think more just physically not possible to do that quickly to do this summer, right? Is that
Correct. Our goal is to have successful projects in summer 2025. So these sites were selected to ensure that we're able to complete them. And then of course, continuing the process of prioritizing and completing all district-wide HVAC replacement. And we'll be bringing that forth, that schedule and prioritization in the master planning process.
And then just my last thing would be, so the temporary measures in the blinds, window tinting, mobile AC units, that you'll be looking at district-wide, and will that also happen in the summer then? Or, yes, okay.
Yeah.
So most or all of our classrooms will be getting some cooling methods, or at least the ones that we know are super hot.
Yeah. So
Can you just speak to that a little bit?
For sure. So like with anything, this is the start of something, right? And we're kicking this off. And these sites were selected based on the assessments that were done. But also we're kind of late in the game for next summer already, right?
Yeah,
So
we gotta get going.
as Jen mentioned, we'll be purchasing equipment as we're bidding this out. So we'll have equipment on hand. So contractors can come in and do the work immediately. Probably, well, it's not going to stop, but as QK is finishing up the design work for this, the other sites for the following summer will come forward, right? So that we can be much earlier on the scale, right? Kind of like the budget cycle that we do, right? So that we can get everything done, the design docs done and ready to bid earlier, right? Because it's going to be a matter of lining up contractors. The longer we wait, the longer we get past March, April, and May, the harder it is to get a contractor, especially in K-12, to do the work, right? So there's the high probability that we won't have an issue with these sites getting the equipment or getting this installed in the summer. We're still looking at the temporary measures that we've talked about with the board. Those will be going in for the spring, right? So, this spring, all of our classrooms will be hot. And I'll give you an example. We're looking at on here, mobile AC units or temporary AC units that we know is not going to cool a 90-degree room down to 70 degrees, but it may take it down to 80 degrees or something like that. And we're looking at this as a quick long-term solution for rooms that don't have AC. And so, and we're looking at it over a period of time, right? So we're looking at 6 weeks maybe in the spring and 4 to 6 weeks in the fall, right? During those 2 hot windows. And after the summer, this is totally made up number, but an estimate, we need 300 of these units. After summer, we'll only need 210 for the fall. And then after next summer, we'll only need 130 units in order to provide some additional cooling. We're still looking at the other measures, blinds in some rooms, window tinting we heard about. Window tinting wasn't viable in all locations because of the type of windows that we're using, right? Aren't all glass, and this would not adhere to, right? So there will be measures put in place. VPCS along with QKA have been looking at the data that Martin was able to provide up until that point in time when we were still having hot days, and determining what will be the best method for those classrooms, in addition to potentially even having the portable AC units. With that, they're working on quotes for that we'll bring back to the board as well for consideration.
I think what would be really satisfying would be a grand master plan where you've got a timeline with each of the sites being a horizontal row, right? And showing kind of present day. And now we've got these 4 schools that are over the summer going to get, it sounds like basically HVAC for every classroom. And so in the fall of the 25-26 year, those 4 lines, as I'm visualizing them, kind of turn green. And we can say like, we're going to have full coverage for AC in those classrooms. And then, make those expected lines, sort of have an expected game plan for the other sites. So if somebody shows up from some parents, some teacher shows up from one of the other sites, we can point to them like on the map and say like, we get it. We're going to end up having AC in every classroom. We have a plan to get there. It's going to take longer than you'd like, but we have this plan and we have these temporary measures that are going in the spring.
And that'll be part of the facilities master plan as well.
Correct. That we'll be providing that schedule. But I love the visual of the green.
Yeah.
So
the red and then yellow when
Yes.
the temporary measures go in, and then the green.
absolutely. And we can definitely work that in as a visual.
Oh, there you go, Rick. Should be in graphic design.
Oh, yeah, sorry. So what would it take to actually do 5 sites this summer? I mean, is that even on the table? Because the way I think Elise asked the question was that these were the only 4 that were possible to do because of the electricity, but it sounds like that's not the case because there's more coming the following summer. So
We need more time. So it's just not feasible right now with the design. We're in a really tight schedule. As Rick mentioned and Hector mentioned, getting these designed DSA approved is just, there's not enough time to do more right now. So, but being active and thoughtful planners, we know that we're moving forward, getting those, the next sites up and ready for design in the spring, approved over the summer, and starting that process with the red, yellow, green, we'll be able to get those projects ready for the following summer and forward. So
So
We're
it
going
sounds-
to do our best to get
So
those.
it sounds,
up
it
on.
sounds like we're bandwidth limited based on the availability of planners at your firm.
So it's not.
Not
No,
necessarily.
It's not
Okay.
just the question of the planners, but it's also about the available, the contractors that are in the market, the ability to acquire the materials and HVAC units. It's the whole process and the whole spectrum of how to start a project and complete a project in a timely manner.
You do HVAC and you can take up to a year to get a transformer if I order it today. So if there's electrical upgrades that need to happen, it could take a year just to get the electrical part. We're looking at anywhere, depending on units, from some as quick as 6 weeks, some as long as 48 weeks on types of units, depending on what your district needs. So that's probably its methodology.
That's this part.
It's helpful. So that's helpful for the delivery of these systems can be pretty constrained in the supply chain, which actually suggests front loading even more of it to the design so that we can have a confident, 3, 4, 5 year full site deployment plan of what will be needed when we can put in those orders as soon as possible. So I'm just wondering, like, if we could wave a magic wand and have detailed plans available for every site in the district, so we would know what work would be needed to be done, and we'd know what equipment we would need to be ordering on what timelines, that would help us get the AC installed faster. We'd be done sooner, right?
Correct. And I believe that's something that we're utilizing through the master planning process is identifying those units. The board has directed us to identify those units, identify the electrical upgrades, the structural upgrades that may be needed. And so we will be bringing that forth as part of the work of the master plan with that timeline. And then once the understanding of all those sites and the prioritization of that, we can move as quickly as we possibly can to procure and secure contractors to do that work.
Because it's just like, maybe it's the case that the market will only support us doing 4 school sites over this summer, but that feels like a separate discussion. Then couldn't we do the architectural work, the design work for all of the sites in the district now?
We do want to be thoughtful about that, and Nectar, I will let you speak on that. Not in regards to not having, so we can absolutely have, you have a architectural pool, you can have multiple architects doing that. Getting everything, let's say we got every single site ready today, those plans are good for only so much. They have a shelf life, and we don't want to not be able to do them within the code cycle. So we want to be thoughtful about what the bandwidth, our community, our contractors, our suppliers, everything that we've been saying, all the pieces together, put together, how we can best roll that out and then have the continuity and the reliability of those plans being approved and still working. So you have about 4 years on a lifespan of a plan from when it's stamped. And then there's code cycle changes. So right now we're in the 2023 code cycle that will, within your Measure S bond program, we will go through another code cycle change. So these are just things that we do in the planning process. Again, we understand that HVAC is of one of the highest priorities of this board in the Measure S bond. And so we're working to bring forth that schedule and timeline for you. But I can't wiggle my nose like you wish. I want to. But right now we're going to bring you the best plan that we possibly can with realistic timeline. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. That's not a good thing to do, especially I know you're successful in Measure T. Let's keep it successful with Measure S. So we'll bring that forth to the board.
I think too, and they touched on, but I think we need to say it too, is it's hard to get contractors at times for HVAC, and there's competing factions for those contractors. And being late right now, right, we don't have the designs done, we don't have the equipment. I actually think 4 is being very optimistic, right? I think we can get it done, but I think that's on the verge of, at the most we could do, right? Based on previous experience of doing HVAC projects and being at different points of a cycle. The lead time that she spoke about, we had sites that were waiting 55 to 65 weeks for equipment. And then we had problems getting contractors.
So the edgy question is like, fine, 4 next summer, fine, I believe you. 8 next summer, the one after that, right? If we're not late in the game for the summer of 2026, presumably.
We also, sorry, Rick. Oh, go ahead.
I'll finish and you
Okay.
can speak. But we also have other competing interests, right? When that site goes under construction, that site is down for the summer. So if we do 8 sites in the summer, we're gonna have limited other sites that can house summer school. So we have to take that into account. And we're looking at very short windows, right? And to get, I think it would be hard pressed to get 8 separate contractors with enough manpower to work in one district. You guys would know better than I from the more projects that you've done. But we had problems with even one contractor doing 2 sites in a school district, right? Let alone getting enough to do 3 or 4, and we were doing bigger schools, right? So there's economy of scale in terms of what's available in the area with other competing projects. There's other school districts where there's K-12 focused construction companies that are bidding out on those as well. And they will pick the one that's most advantageous to them and the ones that they think they can do, and they will pass. And one thing that we want to make sure that we don't do is have subpar contractors doing the work. So I hear you for sure. And if we can accelerate, we will, but we have to be cognizant of some of the just constraints of even getting air conditioning parts as well as contractors.
Yeah, and one thing we're very excited about, yesterday was the election. This morning you wake up, there's so many local bonds have passed. We're or most likely passed, not confirmed, but there's a lot of construction money out there now. So you are ahead of it because you have your money now, and we're going to do that design and get going. But as Rick said, there's going to be a lot out there. So we're going to do our best to bring in the bid coverage and get the best contractors, but we don't want things lowballed. We don't want to have contractors that aren't qualified. We want the work done right, and we want it done right the first time. So we're going to be working on that for you, and we'll bring that back in the master planning process. And we'll do as many as we can every summer. But the thing that I was going to say, it puts a lot of strain on your school site, HVAC. We do have to take the whole site down. So we have to just be thoughtful and work with student services for our summer programs and understand, is there an opportunity to do the project in that timeline. So
I don't have a question, but Anna, summer school, these are the sites. So we're gonna be, I don't know, we'll talk about it later. But I don't want to get into busing. I don't want to get into.
And what's interesting is it just brings up the point with Measure T, we had to really stage different projects thinking about summer school, just the academic year, where we could put portable. I mean, so there's a lot that goes into it. And we have to be really mindful because academics at the end of the day is what we need to kind of work around, right?
Preschools are here.
And I'll just wrap it up since I kicked off the question.
Thank you, Mike.
But no, thanks. I really just kind of wanted to understand what the constraints were that kind of led us down to the number of 4. And there are a lot. And I think the one that I really hadn't been thinking about was the use of the facilities and what it means to take a third of the schools offline during the summer. And
Summer
then,
program.
it sounds like I think I've been the only one that hasn't.
The money, all that money we got for extended learning programs. So Michelle doesn't even know this. I know we'll have to talk. We're gonna have to plan this out.
but we'll work. There are things, Dr.
she
Baker,
is?
don't worry. We will work, and student services, do not worry. We will work with everyone on a logistics plan and timing of that site. So if there is an opportunity or a need to have a portion of that site operable and then we swap it, that's the beauty of this. And we're going to work quickly on this one, but that's the thoughtful planning that we're going to be doing for 2026 summer, right? We know this is really important. We pick these sites. Yep, we're going to come in strong in 2026, and we're absolutely going to be able to make 2025 happen. So we're going to be working on that with the design team, our bid coverage, and we'll work through those challenges together.
Let's turn those red stripes blue. All right.
Yeah, and thanks for including the temporary mitigations in the presentation, because that's the other thing. Like for the sites that aren't getting there, we obviously want it done everywhere, but for the students that are there, like right now, like it's hard to understand you know, hey, I'm going to be, say, at a middle school for just 3 years, and you're telling me I entered it in the 6th grade, and I'm not saying that the middle school is going to be like that, but it might be, might be a while before HVAC comes in. The students that are there right now may never benefit from the HVAC. And, they're the ones that are feeling the heat right now, along with the staff. So whatever we can do to help not solve it, but mitigate it is good.
Great. If there's no other questions, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I second this cool plan.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Yeah, we're on consent now, so we have a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
9.1 approval of retirement notification incentive.
Yeah, it's Kelly.
Good evening. So annually, we bring to you, and this is a little bit earlier this year, but in anticipation of actually next year's hiring season, the opportunity for employees to do some reflection over winter break and determine if this is a time in their career that they're choosing to retire. And so upon approval, we would advertise an opportunity for employees to notify us prior to February 15th, whether they are choosing to retire in June, and that comes with an incentive. Any questions regarding this?
No, I'll just say, I think we started doing this a number of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's been helpful for HR.
Very helpful because when there's an anticipated layoff, for example, it's great to be able to understand which positions would naturally be leaving us so that we can manage the affected people that will be staying. And it might result sometimes in not having to notify individuals. So thank you.
And then also for key positions, you can start hiring,
Right.
sooner, and we get in the pipeline sooner, so we get more qualified candidates. We'll just have a larger pool of them, right?
Yes.
Because when we wait,
absolutely.
when we find out a retirement's happening in June, July, August,
Yes.
we're toast. Yeah.
It's most beneficial if everyone could notify me by March 1st,
Yes.
if they want to leave us altogether, which I hope they don't, but when it comes to their time,
Right.
that's great, because you're right, the hiring season starts for certificated employees in February and then classified throughout the year. So we can plan accordingly.
Any questions? Okay. Oh, these are action items, so we do need a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve 9.1.
I'll second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
9.2 approval of reclassification of classified employees.
This is coming to you tonight after quite some time, where there have been multiple negotiations with CSEA, and I'm pleased to bring this to you tonight. The reclassification process through CSEA is an opportunity for employees to work with their supervisor and work with human resources and with CSEA to analyze positions, job descriptions, comparable rates and wages throughout the area for specific positions. So this would look in the form of an employee filling out a form saying, I'd like to be considered for these reasons. And it's brought to a committee made up of administrators and CSEA members. And there's a presentation, and then the analysis begins. And then once the committee makes a recommendation, it goes to Dr. Baker for consideration and eventually the board. So this is the summary of that opportunity that occurred about a year and a half ago. So we're pleased to have this brought to the board tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sounds like it goes through a good process. So I'll make a motion to approve.
Seconded.
All those
Thank
in
you.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
9.3 adoption of TK curriculum.
Hi, this is something that's new coming down from the state that we have to have adopted curriculum. But before we begin, I do want to give a great big shout out to Anne, who's here tonight, who is our coach for TK. And And she has done an amazing job. I couldn't do this without her. She is wonderful, and we are very proud to have her on our pocket and continue to work with our TKs. It's because of her due diligence, really, that we have the curriculum that we have. She's really sought out looking to really increase not only the academics, but really the social emotional realm of our students in the TK. I could tell her she's a very proud mama every time we talk about what TK and what, how the students are really thriving in the TK program and being prepared for kindergarten. So this is the curriculum that we currently have. Heggerty, it's very much in line with what we're doing in the TK and the K3, K2. And then we have a writing. This is really new, Learning Without Tears. We've just adopted this. It's really teaching the kids the fine motor. In fact, we were having a conversation. She's like, could we do this in preschool as well? Because one of the studies show that when children learn to get their grip on pencils, once they learn they get a bad grip when they're getting it, you can't undo it. So one of the trainings that the teachers just went through was how to teach that during the formation of letters for fine motor skills. So we've also been using the math TK units from San Francisco as our math. And then through the big lift, we adopted Seeds. And so Seeds really is a coaching model as well. We've been very fortunate to have a contract with somebody that used to work with Seeds, but continues working also with the preschool and Redwood City through Slice, who continues this coaching model as well. We're truly trying to build not only Anne's coaching, but the teachers coaching within themselves, the staff. And then this year, we're also piloting the social emotional emojis. So hopefully we can see how that goes. We know that is very popular for some of the school sites in K2 already. So we're hoping to be able to bring something to the TK as well. So we're bringing this forth for you to adopt this curriculum for our TK.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Anne, for all your work on this too. Appreciate it. Are there any comments or questions?
I had a pretty long meeting with the Teachers Association, got a bunch of feedback from them. Haggerty gets thumbs up across the board. So like that's pretty awesome. They were also opining that they needed more writing curriculum. It sounds like Learning Without Tears may be able to deliver that in part. I feel a little less grounded in being able to support the math side of things. I just don't know that I have a lot of data. I know that some of the teachers were complaining that in pre-K in particular, the math instructional coaches were trying to give them like algebraic techniques that were not really age appropriate. And so there's been some history of bumpiness there. So I just want to make sure that the math curriculum here is going to make sense for our TKers. I don't know if there's.
Yeah, can you come up to the microphone? Well, we have people online.
There's people who are
so
online. That's right. Yeah. So button on the right.
turn the microphone
Button on the right.
There you go.
There we go. So excellent question. I've been asking myself that question for the last 3 years since I've been doing this position. We went with the San Francisco Unified for now. We're actually waiting for illustrative math to come out with a TK curriculum. They don't have one currently. Their suggestion was to take the kindergarten and adapt it. And we weren't really interested in that because we know that the SF Unified have been vetted and so far we've been using them for 3 years and they've been excellent. I'm not sure what the preschool teachers are talking about with the coaching. Is that, do you remember?
We can take that offline.
Sure.
But
Okay,
just,
great.
yeah, it did give me a little bit of a lack of confidence in the math curriculum, but.
Okay, because I think pre-K is using it as well for but I'm not sure. You'd have to talk to Edna about that. But we've found it very successful in the classroom and we've adapted it to most of our teachers have been kindergarten teachers, so they're adapting it as needed in the classroom. Yeah, thank you. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I took a look at the site and it looked like it was shapes and counting. So, yeah.
Oh, there's
Which
so much more to math
I'm
than
not
that.
totally sure. Yeah, but I'm not totally sure is that what's age appropriate for that, but that seemed like it would be the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing we're focusing on is number sense. And of course, you know, shapes and colors and those kind of things. But number sense is the big thing for the little guys.
And all of this is being used right now, right? This is, we're not.
This is, yeah, like I said, we're kind of.
Yeah, we're just
Yeah.
we're just approving what's already in the, yeah, okay.
And the
Right.
state has no curriculum. Okay.
Right.
No, there's some, I'm getting lots of samples of
Yeah,
things
sure.
from different
And
people. And so we're going through it. There's a team of teachers and I who are going through and trying to vet things. And so far we haven't found anything that's amazing. I mean, what they're already doing in the classroom with our integrated units and these other curriculums that Anna mentioned are great. And I feel like we have a really strong program.
Alyssa,
Yes.
what are CSBA's recommendations for TK curriculum?
I do not know that exact question. But what I will say is that I talked with Anne yesterday about this and you know, what were you saying? You've been teaching for 35 years and a lot of that has been the little people, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
the good news is we have a real expert. Like, so the reason, like, I don't know that I need to answer that question because because CSBA actually doesn't necessarily get into curriculum and stuff like that. So we might advocate for money for curriculum or advocate for positions for, that sort of thing. So that's not the thing.
Yeah.
But what I do trust is I do trust our leadership, both from the coaching, of course, we have Ms. Herrera and just our teachers. And from all accounts, our TK program is amazing right now. And you were so excited about the different curriculums that you're using that are better than things that you used, like the
learning without tears.
Learning without
It was
tears.
after 33 years of teaching. It's like, oh my gosh, I learned some things,
Right. Right.
which was really exciting. But I also I'm on a bunch of different forums for TK, and we are in a very good place in our district as far as alignment. I know a lot of other districts, I don't want to mention names, but the TKs are just they're all doing their own thing at each site. Whereas our team meets at least twice a month in a PLC, and they're not lockstep because I don't think that's appropriate. But they all have a very similar timeline and they adjust it and adapt it as needed, but they're all basically on the same page.
And just to add to that, Anne's really good at, we now have TK standards as well. And so we are really catering to what those are. That just came out too. That was just recent.
This summer.
This summer. So she's been great, really well versed in making sure that we're meeting all of those TK standard foundations as well.
Yeah. And at some point, I'd love to show you the data.
Yeah.
We're just getting our second, I know, right? Yeah, it's really exciting to see now. We have a beginning of the year, letters and sounds and numbers and those kind of things. And now we're just getting the second set of data. And it's very exciting to see the reds going to greens. Yeah. So I'm very happy. So at some point I want to come and do pictures and show you guys the amazing things that are
Let's
going
get
on.
that agenda.
Okay, no, right. It's a happy place for sure. I mean, we do have a few issues that, at some point I'll bring up, and John gets an earful every once in a while and Anna too.
Yeah.
Anyway, any other
It's
questions?
just going to be really neat to see the longitudinal impact of TK. I mean,
Right.
obviously it's going to take a few years for us to see it go through the school, but having this universal TK is going to, should really make a big difference. And
Well, the teachers are already seeing it. The
Yeah.
kindergarten teachers, and even we now have first graders who had TK. Of course, next year it's going to be even more because we have 16 TKs in the district, including the 2 SLC. But every year the kindergarten teachers are like, oh my goodness, this is amazing to have them coming in, knowing how to sit down for more than 2 minutes, and letters and sounds, I mean, we're finding this year some of them are coming in with their letters and sounds already, but they don't have the self-regulation. So we implement a minimum 25-minute self-regulation time where they actually lay down on a mat and learn how to just be with themselves and not have to have a device or a tchotchke or whatever to keep them entertained. So it's part of the curriculum.
It's exciting. Great. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye. Great.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Thanks.
10.1, report from board members and superintendent. Does anybody want to start? Nothing for Cecilia?
Did we report at the study? I can't remember.
We
I
did
think I
not
mentioned
report
it
at
at
the
the
study
study
session,
session that I
yeah.
went to the Henry Ford's school site council. It was about the budget proposal and sort of hearing what their the budget renewal initiative and hearing their feedback.
Mike, thanks for going to it. You've gone to a number of those now. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Don't
Anyway,
thank me yet, yeah,
well-
because I missed it. I haven't made it to those videos I was trying to.
I think you've gone to at least 3, maybe 4. Okay, okay, all right. Well, I'll still give you credit for going to 2. That's great. Let's see. So I had the pleasure of coordinating a visit from the CSBA president, Albert Gonzalez. He came to Region 5. He didn't come to our district, but he did go to the San Mateo County Office of Ed, and then also out to Cabrillo School District. He was interested in learning more about some of the sustainability and Green Academy work. And both the San Mateo County Office of Ed and Cabrillo have gotten very high awards in the Green Ribbon School Awards. So I learned a lot. And what's interesting is I think we're doing a lot of stuff. So I actually do think, I know I've mentioned this to you before, at some point we should look at the application process because we're actually doing a lot of it. It would be a nice, but I think actually with it, there's probably still a few more things we might want to do, but then we would also be able to have the Green Ribbon School. But one of the things I want to just mention is there's an incredible agricultural program over in Cabrillo. And if you haven't seen it, I just recommend to set up a tour sometime and go see it. I was so impressed. And it was kind of neat to see in San Mateo County that we do have an ag program. So anyway, helped make that happen. That was last week or maybe the week before. And then we did have a board policy committee meeting.
Last one.
Our last one.
Mhm.
I know, sadness, but I think more policies are coming.
Yeah.
Right? At the next meeting. So,
I don't-
and then we had a workforce housing committee meeting, Janet
Yeah.
and I,
Yeah.
Dr. Baker.
That was a brief one to
Yeah.
kind of discuss whether or not we would have closed session, but we ended up, well, our next meeting, we'll have a presentation at our board meeting.
In the public settings,
Yeah.
everybody can get a full update.
So I had been working for a couple months to set up a meeting with RCTA to go and meet with their membership. And that finally landed. And that was really exciting. They basically set aside almost an entire meeting. So it was just me and probably about 25 teachers or so. And they had a lot of questions. We had a lot of like really good dialogue. First thing they asked me was like, what's up with the air conditioning? And I was like, it's on the agenda. I'm talking with Rick. It's going to take a little while. It's going to cost a lot of money, but we're going to do it anyhow. And they seemed pretty happy to hear that. So it's clear that that is a community that could use regular updates from us as well about these kinds of topics, because definitely teachers care a lot about their classrooms being at an appropriate temperature. Just going down through my notes here, they were pretty happy with Haggerty, which I mentioned briefly earlier. They used to use a curriculum called Step Up to Writing that they seemed to really enjoy. That got phased out in favor of Benchmark. They don't love Benchmark, it seems, so they're looking for a little bit more supports in the way of writing curriculum. They were really trying to nudge us towards using in-district folks versus using instructional aides or coaches from outside, and in particular from Stanford. It's a Stanford alma mater. I was a little sad about that. Yeah,
We don't have coaches that are from Stanford.
just trying to funnel back. I don't have the full context on each of these
Talk
things.
to Aaron. What is that about?
I don't know. There were a couple of kind of like district terms like unduplicated pupil or priority school that were not familiar to them. They were grateful for an explanation about what those things were. Just I know some of the language that the state kind of enforces use of around districts is a little alien to members of the public, and that includes teachers as well. So sometimes it's good for us to remember when communicating with people who are not part of the board, just to explain those terms and the like. They were interested to learn about parcel taxes and the restrictions around bond money, what the impact would be of like selling a school site, and it's not usually the bonanza that people think it's going to be. So they appreciated hearing that. Some of the teachers at North Star made a case for believing that they should have a separate campus, that it's too crowded and it's too hard to have a shared school site with MIT. There was one teacher who made a pretty passionate case for effectively busing to just try and like distribute kids evenly across the district, across different socioeconomic levels. People missed some of the newcomer supports that were taken away. There was persistent and I guess somewhat predictable requests for smaller classroom sizes and number of IEPs and the like. There was a hunger for good workbooks. Apparently, a bunch of the teachers are having to piece together their own workbooks with printed lessons, pulling together material from Benchmark. And yeah, there were some other discussions too, but just like those were some high-level findings from the input. But they were really glad that somebody from the board would come sit down, listen to them, hear what kind of trainings that they were interested in receiving, hear what was working, what wasn't. I wrote the notes, sent it back to Erin just to make sure that I had taken appropriate and accurate notes, and then also sent those onward to Dr. Baker. And so, yeah, it was great. They really appreciated the engagement. They also buy on me. They somewhat tissed me for not coming out to the sites more often to go and physically see what was going on and see the instruction that was happening. So,
Mine were covered. Dr. Baker, do you have any? Okay. Thank you. 11.1 contract update information and credit card summary. Any questions? Correspondence? I don't think so. Other business suggested items for future agenda. So we heard possibly a TK presentation. I'm gonna pass that on to the future president to figure that out.
You're still talking the agenda.
We'll make a note that's
Pretty full, right?
yeah. Is there anything else to add to that? No. Okay, no changes to the board meeting calendar. And that brings us to adjournment, 8:42.
I move we adjourn.
Second,
Well, second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.